Whenever the discussion of anime versus comics comes up, many people like to focus on the power scaling aspect, and the general consensus around the whole thing is that comic book characters are stronger than anime characters. For the most part, that is true. On average, you're going to be able to find more comic book characters that are able to solo entire continuities than anime/manga characters. And so as you can tell by the title, I'm going to be focusing on comic book characters that can solo entire anime continuities and even the strongest of them all. So strap in, because I'm going to get real in depth for this video, and I think you're going to have some fun with me going over a few of these characters. Before I get into this video, if you guys enjoy content like this, you know what to do. Hit that like button and subscribe, as I do upload content like this frequently, and to be honest, it's a win-win. You guys show me love and support, and I'll give it back to you in the form of videos. Whether it's comics, manga, or just fiction in general, in due time I plan on covering it, so be there when I go there. But I feel like that's enough of my rambling. When I get into the video and show you guys these comic book characters that can solo even the strongest of anime continuities. Now before I get into the video, I'm going to be going over the rules / just the format of how this video is going to be laid out. Don't worry, it's nothing too complicated. All I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be going through them one by one, give it a little bit of lore, and just give you a little bit of their powers and just state where they're going to be at, so you guys get a general consensus, since I don't want to make this a video where I'm explaining everything about the character, since I do believe that if you haven't read these stories, you should go and read them. My description on them is going to be good enough so you guys can get a grasp on the character and just everything that went around that whole entire moment, because most times in comics when you have powerful characters, it's usually because it's at a certain point in time where obviously the story builds up to it, or they just do something till they become really strong. Before I do delve into the video, I just want to say that there are 2 or 3 characters in here that can't completely solo like the strongest of the strong like anime continuities, but I want to add them here because they're some of my favorite characters and they're extremely strong, and I think you guys should check them out. And I just want to add that if there's a random anime universe out there that can somehow top all of these characters, then whoop-de-doo. But I haven't read every single anime out there. Exact same thing with comics. But one thing I can tell you is that I'm familiar with Fate, Dragon Ball, Misfit, the anime that Anos Bodyguard is from, and Reincarnated as a Slime, and obviously Madoka, and obviously all those other anime that are meant to be really strong. Those are the animes that I'm familiar with, so I use them as a benchmark to say that, okay, if these characters can get over them, then they're going to be stronger than basically every other anime universe. And one last thing, if you guys want the anime version of this, then you know what to do. Comment down below, tell me and everything, spam me with it, and then yeah, I'll get around to doing it. But I feel like I've covered everything I need to cover, so why don't I just jump straight into the video. To begin the video, we're going to go over somebody that I've been wanting to cover for ages, and that's Reed Richards. Not 616 Reed Richards, but the maker Reed Richards. From the 1610 universe, also known as the Ultimate Universe, this Reed Richards was completely different from the others, mainly due to his upbringing. Now, for people that don't understand what Ultimate Universe or the 1610 universe means, it basically just means the universe that Miles Morales is from, because I think that's the character that everybody knows about, so I can just say yeah, the one that Miles Morales is from. Now essentially every event here doesn't go in the Fantastic Four's favor, and it's just a downward spiral for Reed, and you can even tell that this Reed is a lot different from the main continuity Reed, from the not from the jump, but from a certain point, due to how eager he is to figure stuff out and just learn things. I think the best showcase of this early on is when Johnny Storm is about to die on the table, and you have Reed like, oh, I want to see what this place is about, when his friend is literally dying on the table. And essentially over time, he just gets worse and worse. And one thing I do want to point out, and it's something that I do have like a video in mind for, is how much of a hater this guy is. The best way for me to put this is, if you're a Reed Richards out there, do not bump into the maker. Please don't. I really want to delve more into his character, since I do believe he is one of Marvel's greatest villains, and he's just such a phenomenal person. Not in like he's not a good person, he's like one of the worst people ever, but I just want to delve into his scaling because, well, the video is about scaling. So essentially this guy is like what, 2,000 years old, and I don't know if it's been retconned or anything's changed about it, but he should technically have an infinite amount of bodies of himself out there in the universe. And because he's Reed Richards and because he's 2,000 years old, his intellect is off the charts. Now, unlike the other characters on this list, who are, some of them are smart and then strong at the exact same time, Reed is just pure brains. And people like to say, oh, give Batman prep time. No, give the Maker prep time. You're done. The Maker is insane, and I really hope that you guys read the Ultimate Fantastic Four and then just follow his journey past that, because I'm telling you, he's probably one of the greater villains out there. Don't get me wrong, this guy has been defeated on multiple occasions. It's just the fact that he keeps coming back, and I don't think they're going to be able to get rid of him unless they do something, and it's probably going to come from Reed Richards himself from the 616 universe that's actually going to get rid of him. But with that being said, I feel like I've said enough about the Maker Reed Richards, so when I'm moving to the next character. And following up on the Maker, we have another one of my favorite villains, and that's Victor Von Doom. Now, I don't want to delve too much into his backstory and whatnot, but all you need to know is that he wears his mask and everything to hide his scars, so he can obviously shape the perception that people have about him. And I feel like this plays the most inside of Secret Wars, and I think that's where he has his most busted form. Now, the most notable panel of this Doom is him holding Thanos' spine, and although that's cool and all, I think the coolest thing about him is the fact that it took two Reed Richards, the Maker literally being one, to defeat him. And this Doom goes up to the Beyonders and checks them, like he's there in front of them like, yeah, I'm here, after they ask him, yo, who dares to approach us? That's the Beyonders, bro, like that's insane. But he does it and then makes his own little utopia. Now, the best way for me to explain how powerful God Emperor Doom is the fact that they decided to just not fight him and just take away his power and then deal with him. Now, another thing I do want to add on is the fact that there is another Doom that is extremely powerful, and he is extremely recent. Like, I'm talking, I think in the last 8 months recent, and that is Sorcerer Supreme Doom. Now, the reason I'm actually not going to go over him right now is because I've only finished Blood Hunt, so I don't know anything else past that point, and he's probably done a few other things, so he's going to obviously grow in strength, and he is extremely strong, even without me seeing what he's doing. But I don't want to comment on it and then obviously something else happens and whatnot. So for now, I'm going to leave it at just God Emperor Doom, but just know that Sorcerer Supreme Doom is probably going to be talked about a lot when it comes to versus battles sometime soon. But if you're curious, this Doom easily scales to around Outversal, like it's not even close. And this is towards the anime / manga community. I think you guys should read up on Doom, since I feel like a lot of you would like Doom, and I think a lot of people would just genuinely like Jonathan Hickman's stories, because I'm telling you guys, he is one of the best writers out there. All of his stories are just straight peak. You guys should definitely get into it. And yeah, with that being said, let me not start on my Jonathan Hickman meat riding escapade, and let me get into the third person on this list. Next on the list, I want to take a trip to DC and focus on a man that a lot of people start discussions around, mainly because of Reed Richards and Luffy, and that's Plastic Man. To everybody that reads comics, you know how busted Plastic Man is, and he's somebody that's able to go toe to toe with Martian Manhunter, who is extremely underrated, by the way. I think that's somebody that people should focus on a little bit more, and for some reason I always used to call Martian Manhunter Piccolo as a kid, but we're not going to get into why. But moving back onto Patrick, he is a multiversal Plastic Man that is able to basically do whatever he wants to. And if you're a One Piece fan, I'm not going to lie to you, the guy is more wacky than Luffy, so if you guys like the wacky side of Gear 5 and whatnot, you're going to see it a lot in Plastic Man. But for a quick little lore dump, Patrick, before he became Plastic Man, was a low-time thief, and you can actually just tell that he's not as, I'd say, like golden as the other superheroes, since he does make a few remarks and he is like a little bit rough around the edges. But yeah, he basically fell into some chemical vat like a lot of other people do for some reason, and he came out with plastic powers. His body was turned into plastic, and he had obviously the body disposition and everything of somebody that is made of plastic. So he basically goes on to do heroic things, and we are here today. Now on the list with 3 other people, he isn't going to be able to solo every single anime universe out there, but he is extremely strong, and he's somebody that I want you guys to look into, because I feel like he's a cool character. He doesn't get that much focus, but just know that with the focus he does get, you can see how he's a cool character. Unlike other characters inside this video, he does have a weakness, and that's mainly to fire, but obviously you have to be on his level to really even impact him. So obviously if you're like a multiversal person that loves to use fire, then you're gonna have a good time against him, unless he's able to obviously get around it and then just get used to it. But yeah, for the most part, Plastic Man is extremely strong, and I think you guys should go check him out. So shifting back to Marvel, we have one of the most busted kids ever. Like, I'm talking one of the most busted kids ever, and that's Franklin Richards. Now, you'd think the son of Reed Richards and Sue Storm would be decently strong. I mean, they're pretty strong themselves. I mean, they're cool people. But, no. This kid is like up there with Eternity. Like, you gotta understand how these high dimensional beings that stand at the top of the universe are now feeling towards this child. Like, it's insane. And to be honest, the only way I can really put his powers is the fact that he's a reality warper, so good to the point where even the highest beings inside the universe have to feel something for him. And that's all I can really say for Franklin Richards. He's just that strong. For anime fans, the best way for me to explain this is, remember when Gohan got his first rage boost? Imagine if the Grand Priest came down and was like, hey look, listen, I'm not gonna lie, that kid is a little bit too strong. So yeah, Franklin Richards stands up there with the omniversal beings in the Marvel universe, making him basically somebody that can wipe out all of anime / manga. So moving on, we're gonna go back to DC, and that's for a variant of Kal-El / Superman, and that's Superboy Prime. Just like with Plastic Man, there are going to be a few anime characters that should be able to deal with him, but I really just wanted to cover him because of how much of a crash out this guy is. And when people say crash out, they usually just mean, oh, I was mad, so I just did a few things. No. This guy is an actual crash out. He's the definition of a crash out. He's what crash out is meant to be used for. This kid, or, well, I mean, he was technically a teen at the time, but still, you know what I'm saying. Well, he was in his early 20s. He was either a late teen or early 20s, but this guy is a crash out. And I'm going to explain why. So he hails from a universe where it's kind of similar to ours, where it's like superheroes are more from like comic books and whatnot, but still he is like a Superman variant. So Superman falls into his timeline after Infinite Crisis or during it. I can't remember. It's been quite some time since I read it, but I know I did like this story. I know people don't, but I do like it. That happens, and obviously he takes him in, teaches him whatnot. So time goes by with events that I'm not going to explain. And so he's now fighting Superboy and just a bunch of other people until the Flashes come in and put him into the Speed Force, giving him PTSD of him. And it's probably the funniest thing ever in my eyes, because when the Flash pulls up on him again, he's like, yo, you still got PTSD? And he literally, he just doesn't respond, and he just flies up into the air, and he's like, yeah, nah, I'm not dealing with that. And he's like, you know what, I'm gonna crash back into this planet. Do you know how much like PTSD you've got to have to not even respond to the person and be like, nah, I'm out? Yeah, he fights everybody, and I'm talking everybody. Like, he fights everybody that comes up to him, and he kills a bunch of people. The casualties are something crazy, and I don't think I know the exact total, but it's a large number. And so to anybody making like crash out videos or just threads on Twitter or whatnot, please include this guy, because he is literally the biggest crash out ever. For his scaling, he is easily around multiversal, and obviously his speed and all those stats are that of somebody that's multiverse, and obviously that of some of the fastest characters inside of DC. So yeah, and I want to move on to the next character. The next character is pretty interesting. Now, as we were talking about speedsters back there, why don't we go into one ourselves, and that's Mr. Orgasm Man, also known as Wally West. Aside from a few characters on this list, I think Wally West should be the most like explained to everybody out there in the general public, since he has been on the CW show and whatnot. But aside from that, Wally West is Iris West, the girl from The Flash, also known as Barry Allen, nephew. So that's how he ties in. He also gets his speed powers. Barry trains him. Obviously, a massive event that I talked about before, Crisis on Infinite Earths, happens, and yeah, let's just say Barry yeah, this happened to him. So now he's moved on from Kid Flash onto the Big Flash, and now he's that guy. Now everybody knows that the gimmick around the Flash is his speed, meaning the fastest Flash has to be the strongest. And so that is where Wally comes in, and he is literally stated by Barry to be the fastest. And so Wally should be around hyperversal, should have infinite speed, and obviously he has a multitude of abilities that the Speed Force and he has, but obviously the most notable one is him going back in time like how Flash did in Flashpoint. Another cool thing I do want to add is that he should be able to never run out of stamina, and so yeah, this guy is possibly one of the craziest characters inside of fiction. So staying inside of DC, I want to focus on somebody that was added extremely recently, and it's somebody that I think a large majority of the people that are just on social media know about, mainly because of this meme here. Now, if I were to tell you that this man here, also known as Dr. Manhattan, is one of the strongest beings inside of fiction in general, would you believe me? Yeah, when he says he's talking about the source, that's probably his own source, because he can technically make up the source. And around 4 years inside of the story, he should be around 100 years old. So this guy is pretty old, right? But don't worry, he's not actually 100 years old physically. What happens is he grows up with his father, things happen, he obviously turns into like a nuclear bomb sort of like scientist and whatnot. Something happens and he's now given his powers, he now has produced skin and whatnot. And yeah, things happen. I'm not going to explain them all, since you guys should watch the Watchmen movie and obviously everything else that goes on with them. But then past that point, He comes into the comics of DC through Rebirth, and yeah, the best way for me to put this guy is that he is quite literally one of the strongest beings inside of DC. And being one of the strongest beings inside of Marvel and DC is an extremely impressive feat. His AP should be around Outversal, and he was able to blitz the Flash. I mean, I think that's all I need to really say about Dr. Manhattan. He's just extremely busted. And Dr. Manhattan is literally like one of those, haha, I win sort of like characters. Like, he is somebody that people only pull out just so they can say they can win the argument. So moving on from Dr. Manhattan, we have one of my favorite characters ever, and that's Lobo. Now, many of you may know him through Jason Momoa, who I do believe was actually just put on Earth to play Lobo, but I know him for his badassery. Like, I know Lobo for being that guy. Now, people are gonna say he's a Wolverine ripoff, but then again, I'm one of the biggest Wolverine fans out there, so it's a win-win for me. So just like all the other parts, I'm gonna give you a little lore dump on this guy so you guys really know how badass this guy is. Now, Lobo is from a peaceful race that is practically immortal, and the only way for them to die is by somebody from their own race killing them. And so Lobo is born naturally evil, and yeah, you can probably guess what he does to his whole entire race. And so yeah, and what makes it even better is the fact that he's banned from both heaven and hell. So yeah, he's immortal. So now you may be thinking, what does Lobo do now? Well, he's a space traveling mercenary. And so yeah, he runs into a bunch of people, the Justice League being one on multiple occasions, and obviously he fights Superman, and Superman and him always fight tooth and nail. Superman does win, but at the end of the day, it's Superman. And so if Lobo is able to go toe to toe with him, you can only imagine what he can do to other universes. Lobo should scale to around multiversal, and just like with the other two I mentioned in this video, even if he's not like wiping out every single one, I just wanted to show him to you guys since he's extremely strong, and he is somebody that I know a lot of you guys would like, because he's my guy, alright? He's like one of my favorite people out there. He also has a really cool healing factor, and for some reason I'm a sucker for people with really good healing factors. Like, I just find it cool how they'll just go out on their shield because, well, they can come back. So yeah, why don't we move on to the next character? So moving on, we have one of my favorite women in fiction, and that is Wanda Maximoff, also known as the Scarlet Witch. If you're familiar with me, I've said it on a few occasions that I am a X-Men fan. I love mutants because I just love the whole thing about mutants and whatnot. And so I'm gonna explain her a little bit more in depth, but not as in depth as you guys probably want me to, since this is not like a full-on breakdown video of Wanda Maximoff. Wanda is daughter of Magneto and sister to Quicksilver, and the best way for me to put her is that she is technically in the exact same realm as Franklin Richards. She is an Omega level mutant, and a reality bending one at that. She is extremely strong, and I think a lot of you guys are gonna be more familiar with her movie depiction. All I'm gonna say is that if that was comics Wanda, she would have done way more. Best way for me to showcase her power is through House of M. Now, I don't want to spoil everything, but all you need to know is that she's able to put her magic into the fabric of reality, just everything, like existence as a whole. She's able to just affect existence as a whole, and she does something that's extremely crazy. You guys should definitely read House of M, because House of M, in my opinion, I just said it, I'm an X-Men fan, so it's one of my favorite stories. Yeah, Wanda is extremely powerful, and when she's at her max power and like basically going berserker, she is up there. Like, I'm telling you guys, she's one of the strongest people out there. Lastly, we have Rune King Thor, and we all know Thor. So why don't I just explain how he got the Rune King powers so you guys understand like how powerful this guy is. Basically, to become the Rune King and use the full Odin Force, you have to do a few things: sacrifice, gaining knowledge of the past, and then the knowledge of the ancient runes. And he does all three and comes back and is, well, let's just say he's high Outversal. I don't even know if high Outversal is a thing, but wherever the highest tier is, he should be in that range. And so yeah, this guy is like one of the strongest beings, just period. I feel kind of mad at what they did to Thor inside the movies. I say just pick up this comic and just get that sense of like, okay, I like Thor again. There are many other Thor stories out there that I believe you guys should read, but I think this one's probably the main one since this is where he's the most powerful. And I know people are very ooga booga when it comes down to liking stories. They see strong man, they like the story. So with that being said, why don't I wrap up the video? So yeah, they should be the characters that can solo anime. Now I know obviously all of them can't, but the majority of them can, and yeah, they are possibly some of my favorite characters in there. They're the favorites of the ones that can do it. I know there are a few more that I like that can obviously solo anime. I know a lot of people are going to be screaming in the comment sections, you forgot this character and whatnot, but if you guys want me to make a part 2 or just a follow-up video to the anime one, that if you guys want, as I said before, I'll make it, then yeah. Yeah, as I said with all of the characters in here, if you guys like what I was talking about with obviously their plot lines and whatnot, you guys should definitely go read it. And I feel like a lot more anime fans should definitely go out there and read more comics. Personally, I started out as both an anime and a comics kid. Then I think after that, after that, due to the influence of the MCU, like very early on, from like I think it was Captain America, the first Avenger, I then went back into comics. Obviously, as you can tell by a lot of the characters at the video, it's more Marvel centric, since I did obviously read the Marvel comics more. But don't worry, I'm still a DC fan. Like, my favorite characters from DC are Damian, Jason, and obviously the Flashes and whatnot. I really did love the whole Green Lantern thing, and I want to make a video about like Lantern Corps, but I saw somebody else do it and I was kind of mad, so I just put the video off for a little bit, but I'll come back to it. But yeah, like the Green Lantern, like when he becomes, then obviously the White Lantern, like obviously you then have when everybody comes back and they're part of the Death Lantern Corps. There's so many cool things about comics, man, that if you haven't dove into comics, even if you don't want to read it, I'd say like you guys should all know about Comics Explained. Stick on his like long videos where he goes in depth. Maybe you can then go back, because obviously he doesn't cover, well, he covers everything, but he doesn't cover everything. So you can maybe find a story that he may not cover. They may say go read, since it ties into that. I see you guys cover it. Yeah, there are a lot of stories out there and a lot of YouTubers that cover it. So if you don't want to read it, I'd say at least go watch a few of the videos that cover it, because obviously they then put it into a way that you guys like and whatnot. And yeah, comics are cool, man. Like, I want to start including them in my videos, since I know you guys like the Luffy vs. Reed Richards videos. So yeah, I feel like I waffled on enough. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and shall see you next time. Goodbye.